Vivian Vance truly hated him more than anyone. Vivian Vance was born as Vivian Robera Jones on July 26, 1909 in Cherryvale, Kansas. She grew up in a very religious and traditional home in the middle of America. Vance loved performing arts from a very young age, even though her mother didn't want her to. When she was young, she found happiness and comfort in music and acting. She really wanted to follow her dream, so she learned drama from a famous teacher named Ava Legalén. Eventually, she moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where she started working in local theater. During these early years, she practiced her skills and built the base for a career that would later become successful on both stage and screen. Vivian's move to New York City in the 1930s was a really important change in her career. She performed in many Broadway shows, including Anything Goes and The Voice of the Turtle. In these shows, her talent as both an actress and singer started to really shine. Her natural sense of timing, expressive face, and warm stage presence got her great reviews and opened doors to Hollywood. Even though her early movie roles were small, her stage work caught the attention of producer and writer Jess Oppenheimer, who would later give her the role that made her famous. Vance's career took another exciting turn when she took over for the legendary Kay Thompson in the 1937 Broadway musical Hooray for What? The musical was full of energy and excitement, and it became an important stepping stone in Vance's career. Her success in Hooray for What showed that she was able to handle leading roles on her own. But it was her next big role in the Cole Porter musical Let's Face It in 1941 that would make her a Broadway star. In Let's Face It, Vance played a character named Nancy Callister, and everyone loved her performance. She shared the stage with famous stars like Danny Kaye, Edith Meiser, and Eve Arden. Vance's portrayal of Nancy Callister became one of the best parts of the show. The musical ran for an amazing 547 performances, which was a huge achievement in her career. The success of Let's Face It made her well known in Broadway circles. She had not only shown her incredible talent but also proved herself as a dependable and skilled performer in big productions. While Vance's Broadway success was a major part of her career, she also found opportunities in movies, which she went after in the 1940s. After appearing in a revival of The Cradle Will Rock in 1947, Vance decided to move to California to look for new opportunities in both theater and film. The West Coast offered a different kind of potential for her career, and she wanted to expand beyond just Broadway. During her time in Los Angeles, Vance appeared in 2 films, and both showed her ability to adapt to the demands of making movies. In The Secret Fury in 1950, Vance played the role of Leah, a tough and street-smart chambermaid. She brought both toughness and vulnerability to the character. Her performance got great reviews as she proved that her acting skills were just as strong on screen as they had been on stage. Similarly, in The Blue Veil in 1951, she played the character of Alicia, a role that showed her range as an actress. Her performances in these films earned her positive reviews from critics who recognized her strong screen presence and her ability to play different types of characters. In 1951, Vance was cast opposite Lucille Ball in I Love Lucy, a television show that would become one of the most famous sitcoms of all time. As Ethel Mertz, the funny, loyal, and lovably sarcastic best friend and neighbor to Lucy Ricardo, Vance showed an amazing ability to play the straight woman to Ball's crazy antics. Her chemistry with Ball was undeniable, creating one of the most beloved comedy duos in television history. Behind the scenes, however, Vance and Ball shared a complicated but deep friendship that would last for many decades. Though they sometimes fought, they ultimately respected and cared for one another as colleagues and friends. Winning the first-ever Emmy Award for Best Supporting Actress in 1954, Vance made history and helped show how important supporting roles were in television comedy. Her portrayal of Ethel Mertz was groundbreaking in many ways. She offered a strong, funny female character who wasn't just there to support the male leads, but was a comedy powerhouse in her own right. She brought humanity and relatability to the role, often grounding the more ridiculous situations of the show with her wit and warmth. It was in 1965 that Vance's career experienced another shift when she joined the cast of The Lucy Show, a television sitcom that would become one of the defining series of the 1960s. After spending several seasons on the show, Vance's role in television helped her become even more widely recognized. But it was after she left the series that she tried to revive her film career. She signed on to appear in Blake Edwards' The Great Race in 1965, a comedy that starred Tony Curtis, Jack Lemmon, and Natalie Wood. The film was funny and lighthearted, very different from some of the more serious roles she had done before. Despite not being a huge hit, The Great Race had moderate success and earned several Academy Award nominations. Vance saw this film as a possible turning point for her movie career, hoping it would open doors to more important roles. However, the film's success did little to jumpstart the film career she had hoped for, and her Hollywood dreams largely remained unfulfilled. Throughout her career, Vance's work in both theater and film showed her versatility and determination as an actress. From her early days on Broadway to her role in The Lucy Show and her brief attempt at Hollywood, Vivian Vance's career is one of resilience and adaptation. Although she never fully achieved the level of film stardom that some of her peers reached, her contributions to the arts, both on stage and on screen, are remembered fondly by fans and critics alike. Her legacy as an actress who brought warmth, humor, and depth to every role she took on continues to resonate in the world of entertainment. Vivian Vance experienced a complex and often challenging personal life, marked by a series of 4 marriages. Each one played a different role in shaping her emotional world and influencing her personal development. Her first 3 marriages ended in divorce, showing the turbulence and personal difficulties she often faced behind the scenes, even as she maintained a public image of humor and grace. These early marriages were reportedly strained by the demands of her career, personal incompatibilities, and perhaps the lingering effects of her upbringing and mental health struggles, including periods of depression. Though not much is widely known about her first and second husbands, these relationships couldn't withstand the strain of her rising fame and the pressures of working in show business. Her third marriage, however, was both the longest and most troubling. She was married to actor Philip Ober for 18 years, a relationship that lasted from 1941 to 1959. Ober, who had a modest acting career of his own with appearances in film and television, reportedly became increasingly resentful of Vance's success. This was especially true as she gained national fame and acclaim for her portrayal of Ethel Mertz on I Love Lucy. Rumors and reports spread that Ober was not only emotionally abusive but also physically violent. This was driven by his jealousy over Vance's greater professional achievements and the attention she received. Several accounts from friends and associates of Vance suggested that her home life with Ober was far from the cheerful persona she showed on television. These allegations, though never publicly confirmed by Vance herself, painted a picture of a woman who suffered greatly even as she brought laughter to millions. The emotional toll of this marriage likely influenced her later decisions in both her personal and professional life. It has been thought that her difficult experiences with Ober left her cautious of further romantic relationships for a time. However, a new chapter in Vance's personal life began on January 16, 1961, when she married her fourth and final husband. John Dodds. Dodds was a respected literary agent, editor, and publisher. And unlike her previous partners, he seemed to offer her the stability, respect, and companionship she had long sought. Their relationship was reportedly built on mutual admiration and emotional support. Dodds provided Vance with a sense of safety and partnership that had been missing in her earlier marriages. The couple initially made their home in Stamford, Connecticut, a peaceful and culturally vibrant town that allowed Vance to step away from the intensity of Hollywood and enjoy a quieter, more grounded lifestyle. Stamford became a retreat where she could focus on her personal interests, including painting and volunteer work. She was known in the community as a gracious and generous neighbor. In 1974, after more than 10 years in Connecticut, Vance and Dodds moved to California. The move was partly because of Vance's ongoing health concerns, as well as a desire to be closer to the entertainment community and longtime friends. This included Lucille Ball, with whom she had maintained a complicated but ultimately enduring friendship. Settling in Belvedere, a peaceful and beautiful community in Northern California, Vance and Dodds enjoyed a relatively quiet life together in her later years. Despite her declining health, she suffered a series of strokes and was eventually diagnosed with breast cancer. Vance remained active in her creative pursuits and cherished the emotional support Dodds provided. Their marriage lasted until Vance's death on August 17, 1979, marking the end of her long and often turbulent journey in love. For Vance, her final marriage was a source of comfort and peace, a stark contrast to the pain and volatility of her earlier relationships. To the millions of viewers who tuned in to I Love Lucy every week during the 1950s, Vivian Vance and William Frawley were a comedic dream team. As Ethel and Fred Mertz, the cranky but lovable landlords and best friends to Lucy and Ricky Ricardo, they bickered with a kind of timing and chemistry that only seasoned professionals could deliver. But behind the scenes, the relationship between the actors was anything but friendly. In fact, Vivian Vance truly hated William Frawley more than anyone she ever worked with in her long career. What the audience mistook for acting was often a reflection of real-life dislike. The animosity began the moment they met. Vance, a classically trained actress and stage veteran, was horrified when she learned that Frawley, a hard-drinking, gruff character actor more than 2 decades older than her, would be playing her on-screen husband. At the time, Vance was in her early 40s, attractive and elegant, while Frawley was in his mid-60s, balding and known for his harsh personality. Vance reportedly complained openly, saying it was completely unbelievable that someone like her would be married to someone like him. This infuriated Frawley, whose pride and ego couldn't handle such blunt criticism. From that moment on, the two were locked in a cold war of mutual contempt that lasted well beyond their time on the show. Their relationship got even worse as I Love Lucy became a runaway success. Vance's commitment to her craft, her insistence on rehearsals, script analysis, and attention to detail clashed with Frawley's old-school, often lazy attitude. He was known to memorize his lines quickly and resist any changes, often becoming irritated when scenes required multiple takes. He also had a reputation for drinking heavily even during work hours, which sometimes made him unreliable and unpredictable on set. Vance, a perfectionist who valued professionalism, found this behavior intolerable. She often accused him of sabotaging scenes or deliberately messing up her timing with offhand remarks and grumpy line deliveries. Frawley, for his part, was no less mean. He despised Vance's snobbish attitude and resented her for her comments about his age and appearance. He frequently called her unflattering nicknames behind her back, reportedly calling her the sack of doorknobs or that fat broad. He even had a clause in his contract stating that if Vance ever left the show, he would not work with her again. He stuck to that promise. When CBS later considered creating a spin-off of I Love Lucy as a new series centered on the Mertzes, Frawley immediately turned down the idea when he found out Vance was hesitant about continuing the partnership. Their hatred had become so toxic that neither could imagine spending any more time together than necessary. Even when the show ended and they went their separate ways, the bitterness remained. In interviews later in life, both were reluctant to discuss each other in depth, but when they did, the dislike was obvious. Frawley reportedly celebrated when he heard of Vance's cancer diagnosis in the late 1970s, telling a friend, "That old bag finally got what was coming to her." On the other hand, when Frawley died in 1966, Vance was said to have exclaimed, "Champagne for everyone." Though this may be made up, it underscores the deeply rooted hostility between the two. Their feud has since become legendary in television history, not only because of how intense it was, but because it was so sharply contrasted by the warmth and friendship their characters displayed on screen. They were a masterclass in acting, managing to create one of TV's most iconic couples despite a real-life relationship filled with hatred, mistrust, and bitterness. To this day, when fans discuss the history of I Love Lucy, the one thing that shocks them most is learning that Ethel and Fred Mertz couldn't stand each other off camera. And for Vivian Vance, William Frawley wasn't just an unpleasant colleague. He was the person she hated more than anyone else in her entire life.